I used to work as a janitor in a mall, which had an elaborate parking lot. Most of my shift was near the parking lot area as that place was to be kept near all the time. But something happened during one of the nights which changed me forever. I started like a normal day. By evening I started my shift and a lot of the parking lot was empty. Usually we don't get much traffic on weekdays, and during the weekend was when everyone would come. The shift was quiet. I had two other coworkers who used to take up various parts of the mall. Sometimes we could exchange shifts because we would get bored. This time, I got to work on the top floor near the movie theater, but one of my coworkers asked to exchange it with his designation of the elevator area in the parking lot. But that was alright with me, since the parking lot was usually the easy place and all the other places were hectic. I took my kit and started sweeping the floor. My eyes darted from the floor to a shady looking van at the corner of the parking lot. There were very few cars there, but this van stood out the most. It had dents and paint scrapes all over its body, and it had weird decals on its side that I didn't recognize. I felt a chill run down my spine when I saw two really bulky looking dudes get out of the van and walk straight in my direction. My mind tried to ignore it and pretend they just wanted to go to the elevator near me. The two men abruptly stood in front of me while looking all around the place. Upon further look, I noticed the taller one had tattoos all over his neck and arms, and the other one had a golden tooth. I asked them, "How can I help you?" To which they gave me a weird look, and the taller dude handed me a box. I refused to take it, and he tossed it to the ground and asked in a very thick accent, "Give money now." He had a Russian or Eastern European accent which was intimidating, and I replied that I didn't have money. Without a warning, the guy punched me in the face, which sent me flying to the ground. My face was swollen and bleeding, and before I let them do anything more, I got up and ran. The two men shouted in some foreign language and chased me around the parking lot. As I was running, I felt a sharp, agonizing pain in my left knee. I looked back and saw a knife was plunged deep into it. My legs gave in, and I hid inside the generator room where I lost the two men. With the little strength I have, I called the cops and told them about the situation. But unfortunately, that alerted the men to where I was, and they were close by. They charged into the generator room and dragged me outside. I screamed for help, but there was nobody in the parking lot and people inside the mall wouldn't hear me. The two men dragged me towards the van and punched me senselessly when I tried to make any noise. I had accepted my fate. I was helpless, losing blood and fatigued. They opened the back door of the van and tied my mouth up and tossed me into it. The last thing I heard was them slamming the door and my consciousness slipping away from me. Later, I woke up in an ER room and a cop was sitting next to me. He explained how they just got there when the two men almost left the parking lot. Apparently, my coworker had some illegal dealings with the men, and he had purposefully swapped out shifts to save himself. I felt betrayed and sad to have been played like that and to experience all this even though I didn't deserve it. But I was glad that I was alive, at least. This happened when I used to do night shifts at a 7-Eleven store. Usually, my night shift was simple and easy as the store was just out of town near a gas station. So most of the people who come are people who need to refuel. I had taken this job to earn extra for college, and my daytime classes weren't super stressful. Though it meant that I would be sleep deprived most of the time, I used the nighttime to do most of my assignments and academic work. One night, I was doing my assignment and a rugged man approached me. The man had a square jaw and a muscular build, not the gym-going type, but that of a construction worker. He was sweating profusely and was lightly panting. The man asked me for a pack of cigarettes, and feeling a bit uneasy with this short burst of action, I slowly gave it to him. He then told me to hold on to it, that he needs to buy more things, and went off to the other side. I was really creeped out about it. The man was jumpy, and I feared he might be a substance abuser or something. So out of suspicion, I looked at the security camera to see if he wasn't stealing or doing anything bad. But to my surprise, the guy acted pretty normal, going over some razors into the booze aisle. I felt sort of bad for assuming things. My mind went back to the assignment I was doing. From time to time, I would check on the security camera and ask if he needs any help. But he just gave me a thumbs up and proceeded to search, not taking anything but just browsing. Soon after, a lovely woman entered the store and kindly asked me where she can get some snacks and magazines. I obligated her and directed her to the stall, and she then asked for my help to get a carton of beer from the shelf. My mind didn't allow me to say no to a woman who asked so kindly, so I insisted. When I reached the booze aisle, I saw the man was still hunched over seeing what drink he wanted. As I took the beer carton out, I felt strong pain in my head and fell on the floor dizzy. It took me a moment to figure out what happened. The afterpain was insufferable. I saw the woman and the strange man holding a baseball bat. That's when I realized that I was hit in the head with a bat. The man then pulled out a knife, the one which was taken from the store, and he grappled me and held the knife to my throat. My body turned cold and I felt like my life would end at any moment. I couldn't even feel the pain in my head as my body almost tried to shut down. The man tightly held my arms together behind my back, and the knife pointed below my chin, pushing a little to my neck. I couldn't move. The man was a giant. He shouted at me to empty the register and slowly walked me over there. I couldn't press the emergency button under the counter or reach for any weapon. They both had this planned out. While I was emptying the register, the woman was screaming with joy and looting the store like crazy. She took a huge bag and tossed in items left and right. The man then smashed my head against the counter, which almost knocked me out. Then he took the knife and kept it high as if he was about to stab me and finish me off. The woman from across the store screamed and told the man not to do it. The two argued back and forth. I thought that was it. My life would be over in a few seconds. But thankfully, I seen blue and red lights outside and heard sirens, and the two criminals panicked and left the store. The cops came inside and called the ambulance. I was saved then. Later I found out that the man had broken out of prison and was in a hideout with his girlfriend, and the cops were called when someone in the parking lot saw me getting hit in the head with a bat. Since then, I had never worked a night shift or in a secluded area. I still have stitches on my head, but the memory is more than enough as a reminder. I used to work at the docks way back. It was one of my first jobs which paid enough for me to get by with college. They usually called me at odd hours, but that worked well for me since I'm usually a night owl, and if the next day was off, I could work morning and after midnight. I usually had small security jobs. The shipyard had warehouses attached to it, and my jobs usually included doing rounds, checking and counting the shipments in the warehouses, and patrolling the section I was assigned to. I would have some coworkers during my night shift to split the workload, but it was only one other person. Usually, it was my friend Eric who used to get the same shift as me. It was a perfect job for me to do at that time, but something happened that really bothered me enough to quit and never come back. One night, as I was going to my shift, I got a call from my boss saying Eric won't be joining me for work today. I felt odd. I thought Eric would inform me about this beforehand. My boss asked if I'd be able to take care of my section alone. I would be compensated for it, and this would be considered overtime. Most of the night would be quiet, and I'd have a lot of time to do the checking and counting with ease. At least, that's what I thought at that time. I got to the dock and put on my equipment. I got in the middle of my section yard and scanned around. My section was connected to the water, and on the opposite side of that were two warehouses which contained shipments and boxes of all sorts. There were some of those big freight containers made of metal outside the warehouse near the water side. Finally, in the middle, it was just a large empty area from one end to the other ending, with a steel mesh wall bordering the next section. I started taking my usual rounds near the warehouse with my headphones on, since I wasn't that comfortable with the silence. As I was walking, I heard some weird clicking noises, which were immediately followed by some chains rattling. Curious, I made my way to the place where I heard the noise. I couldn't see a lot. Suddenly, the lights went out. I panicked for a second, as it had never happened to me before. The radio chimed in and said, "Sorry there folks, we're working on it. It's some eternal issue." I turned on my flashlight and started scanning the area. This wasn't looking good. I got startled when I saw that the mesh wall was cut. There was a small hole and some mud dug out underneath it. Was it some kind of animal? I didn't know why, but my first instinct was to follow the little mud trail into the dock, rather than calling on the radio. I followed the trail which abruptly stopped in the middle of the place. The radio called in again, instructing that every section had to flip on the fuse switch. I tried to talk into it, but because I was panicking, I had accidentally switched the dial and changed the frequencies. I didn't know how to change it. Panic set in when I saw water-soaked footprints going towards the warehouse I was going to. My heart skipped a beat. I decided to change my course and go towards the fuse switch and flipped it on. I got on the camera panel, which was near to the fuse switch. I scanned all the security cameras to see what it was. A chill ran down my spine as I saw it. A small man was crouched in a corner eating something clumsily. He had a bolt cutter and a knife on his side. I had to get my phone, I thought. I quietly crept towards the warehouse and took my phone from the table. Then, I heard the same thud again, and I saw this man running towards me with a knife and bolt cutter in his hands. I screamed hard and ran towards the mesh wall on the other side. I didn't want to look back. I kept picturing that man with a knife just behind me. I reached the wall and made a lot of noise crying for help. Thankfully, some security guards came and I told them what happened. They quickly covered my section for me and told me to go home. The next day I called my boss, and he told me it was some homeless guy that trespassed and broke in, and they had to call the police. I knew I couldn't do that again, and I left the job and never went back there.